The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with the clicks, chirps, and harmonics of a dozen species discussing the morning's agenda. Ambassador Vextar of the Hegemony flicked his crystalline appendages dismissively as he reviewed the proposal before them. Another human request for membership in the Galactic Defense Alliance. Preposterous, he declared, his voice carrying the authority of a civilization that had ruled star systems for millennia. These mammals have barely escaped their gravity well. What could they possibly offer? Around the circular chamber, nods of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. The insectoid Cathara chittered their approval. The gaseous ethereals pulsed in synchronized patterns of derision. Even the normally diplomatic Centauri tilted their elongated heads in obvious skepticism. In the far corner of the chamber, almost forgotten, sat Dr. Sarah Chen, the human representative. Had requested this audience 6 months ago, and the council had granted it more out of curiosity than respect. She sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, dark eyes observing everything while her expression remained carefully neutral. The humans, continued Vextar, pulling up holographic displays, possess no energy shields. Their ships are crude, metal constructs that would shatter against our plasma cannons. They have no telepathic abilities, no quantum manipulation technology, no dimensional fold drives. He gestured toward Chen with barely concealed contempt. They send us a single representative who hasn't spoken a word in 3 sessions. The Cathara delegate, Zixth, raised a serrated limb. Our intelligence suggests they still use projectile, weapons, primitive chemical explosives. How quaint! Laughter, or its equivalent across species, filled the chamber. Dr. Chen remained motionless. Furthermore, Vextar continued, warming to his subject, their military record is unimpressive. They've never faced a true spacefaring threat, never defended against orbital bombardment, never engaged in void combat. What would they do if the Devourers returned from the dark between galaxies? At the mention of the Devourers, the chamber fell silent. Every species present had lost worlds. To those mechanical horrors before the creatures had mysteriously vanished into deep space a century ago. The very thought of their return sent ripples of fear through the assembly. The humans would hide behind their little moon, sneered the ethereal representative, its gaseous form shifting colors with amusement. Or perhaps surrender immediately, more laughter. Dr. Chen finally moved, straightening slightly in her chair, but said nothing. I motion to deny the human application, Vextar declared. All in favor? 11 appendages, tentacles, and energy fields rose in agreement. Only, Dr. Chen abstained. Motion carried. The human application for membership in the Galactic Defense Alliance is denied. Vexatar's crystalline features glowed with satisfaction. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when they've evolved beyond throwing rocks at their enemies. Dr. Chen stood slowly, gathered her simple leather portfolio, and walked toward the exit. Just before reaching the door, she paused and spoke for the first time in months, her voice quiet but carrying clearly in the chamber. You assume we throw rocks because we can't do better. She turned to face them, and for just a moment, something flickered in her eyes that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. You never considered that we throw rocks because that's all we've ever needed. She left without another word. 3 days later, the alarms began screaming across 7 star systems simultaneously. The Devourers had returned. Their ships emerged, from quantum fold points like metallic cancer, immediately beginning the systematic destruction of anything that moved. The hegemony's mighty dreadnoughts, pride of their fleet, launched devastating plasma barrages that should have reduced the Devourer vessels to component atoms. Instead, the enemy ships absorbed the energy, grew larger, and continued their advance. Kithara swarm fighters, millions strong, descended upon the invaders like an angry cloud. The Devourers simply opened their hulls, revealing gravitational manipulation systems that pulled the fighters apart, molecule by molecule. The Ethereals attempted to phase shift their way to safety, only to discover the Devourers had somehow learned to track and destroy beings existing in dimensional flux. One by one, the great civilizations of the galaxy found their most advanced technologies useless. Their energy weapons fed the enemy. Their shields were bypassed. Their escape routes were cut off. The distress signal reached Earth 18 hours after the attacks began. What emerged from Terra's gravity well 6 hours later made no sense to the retreating alien fleets. Human ships were indeed crude metal constructs, angular, ugly things that looked like they'd been hammered together in a backyard forge. They had no shields, no energy weapons, no exotic matter cores. They had railguns, kinetic missiles, fusion warheads, nuclear pulse drives, technology so primitive they barely registered on advanced sensors. Admiral Sarah Chen, somehow now, wearing a military uniform instead of diplomatic attire, led the human fleet straight into the heart of the Devourer formation. The enemy ships, designed to absorb and adapt to energy weapons, had no defense against chunks of tungsten traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Their hulls, engineered to phase shift away from plasma, couldn't avoid simple kinetic impact. Human missiles, guided not by sophisticated AI but by the sheer bloody-minded stubbornness of human pilots, slammed into Devourer vessels and detonated. Fusion charges that operated on principles so basic, so crude, that the enemy's adaptation protocols simply couldn't process them. The Devourer's gravitic manipulation systems, designed to tear apart fighters held together by energy fields, found themselves trying to grab hold of human vessels that were literally held together with welds, bolts, and what appeared to be spite. When the human ships took damage, they didn't retreat for repairs. They kept fighting with holes in their hulls, sparks flying from severed cables, and crew members literally holding broken systems together with their bare hands. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity did something no advanced civilization would ever consider. They won through sheer, primitive, unstoppable violence. After the last Devourer ship was reduced to scrap metal, Admiral Chen's voice crackled across all communication frequencies. Dr. Chen sends her regrets, but she's been promoted. The Galactic Defense Alliance application is hereby resubmitted. We'll be in touch. In the council chamber, Ambassador Vexitar stared at the tactical displays showing human ships, battered, smoking, but victorious, and finally understood. They hadn't been ignored because they were weak. They'd been ignored because everyone else had forgotten what strength actually looked like.